The massive ships appeared in Earth's sky on a Tuesday morning. They blocked out the sun over major cities like giant metal clouds. Admiral Kextar stood on the bridge of his flagship, looking down at the blue planet below. His forearms crossed, behind his back as he studied the human world through the viewing screen. "This should be simple," he told his second-in-command. "The humans have primitive weapons. Their technology is thousands of years behind ours. We will be done here in days." Commander Velnox nodded his large head. His purple skin gleamed under the ship's lights. "Yes, Admiral. The scan shows they still use chemical rockets and metal bullets. Their nuclear weapons are toys compared to our shields." The Zephyrian Empire had conquered 47 worlds. Each time it followed the same pattern. Show overwhelming force. Demand surrender. Take control of the government and resources. Move the local population to work camps. Strip mine the planet. Move on to the next world. Earth looked like it would be no different. The first human fighters that rose to meet them were destroyed in seconds. The jets exploded like firecrackers against the alien shields. Nuclear missiles launched from Earth bounced off the ships like raindrops. Within 6 hours, every major military base on the planet was smoking ruins. President Williams appeared on television screens around the world. His face was pale and his hands shook as he read from a prepared statement. "The United States of America surrenders to the alien forces. We call upon all nations to do the same to prevent further loss of life." One by one, other world leaders followed. The Prime Minister of England, the President of France, the leaders of China, Russia, India, and Brazil. All surrendered within 24 hours of the invasion. Commander Velnox was assigned to oversee the North American sector. He landed his command ship in Central Park in New York City. The humans stayed in their homes, peeking out from behind curtains as alien soldiers marched through the streets. "See how they cower," Velnox said to his lieutenant. "This species breaks easily. We will have them mining their planet's core within a month." But something strange happened in the days that followed. The humans did everything they were told during the day. They went to work. They followed the new rules. They answered questions when asked. But at night, weird things started happening. Jake Murphy worked as a maintenance man in a Chicago office building. During the day, he smiled and nodded at the alien guards. He fixed their equipment when they asked. He even learned a few words in their language. But every night after work, Jake did small things. He loosened bolts on their vehicles just enough to make them break down later. He mixed salt into their fuel supplies. He programmed their elevators to play human music at random times. In Los Angeles, Linda Brooks taught 3rd grade at an elementary school. The aliens let school stay open because they needed humans to keep working. Linda taught her students math and reading like always. But she also taught them games. Simple games with hand signals and word patterns. Games that looked innocent but were actually ways to pass messages between resistance groups. "Remember the duck game," Linda would tell her students. "When you see Mr. Peterson at the grocery store, ask him if the ducks are swimming upstream. He'll know what you mean." The alien soldiers noticed nothing unusual. To them, human children always played silly games. 3 weeks after the invasion, Commander Velnox stood in his temporary office reviewing reports. His purple skin had turned a darker shade, which meant he was confused. The reports from his sector made no sense. "Lieutenant Zaxuri," he called. A younger alien officer entered the room. "Explain these maintenance reports. Our vehicles break down twice as often here as they do on other conquered worlds. Our equipment fails at random times. Our computers play strange sounds." Zaxuri's skin also showed confusion. "I do not understand it either, Commander. The humans seem cooperative. They repair our equipment during the day, but somehow everything breaks again at night. And what about these communication intercepts? Our listening devices pick up thousands of human conversations, but none contain any useful intelligence. They talk about ducks and weather and sports, scores, but our analysts cannot find any hidden meanings. Perhaps humans are simply bad at building things," Zaxuri suggested. Velnox was not convinced. He had conquered 12 worlds before Earth. He knew what broken populations looked like. They either fought desperately or gave up completely. These humans were doing neither. In Philadelphia, Dr. Helen Price worked at a hospital that now treated both humans and aliens. She was one of the few humans who spoke directly with the occupiers every day. She noticed things that the alien commanders missed. The Zephyrian soldiers were homesick. They talked about families on distant worlds. They complained about the food and the long hours. Some of them had been fighting in this war for decades. They were tired. "You have children?" Dr. Price asked Lieutenant Mordek as she bandaged a cut on his arm. "3 offspring," the alien replied. "I have not seen them in 4 rotations. 4 years," Dr. Price translated. "That must be hard." Mordek's skin changed color slightly. Helen had learned this meant surprise. "You understand?" "Of course. Parents miss their children. That's normal everywhere, isn't it?" The alien lieutenant looked at her strangely and left without saying anything else. But the next day he came back. Not for medical treatment, but just to talk. He told her about his homeworld and his family. Helen listened and shared stories about her own children. Other aliens began visiting the hospital even when they weren't sick. They sat in the waiting room and watched human families. They saw human parents hugging their children. They saw people crying when loved ones were hurt and celebrating when they got better. These things confused them. The Zephyrian Empire had taught them that other species were inferior. But these humans showed the same emotions that Zephyrians felt. Admiral Kextar received his first troubling report 6 weeks after the invasion. It came from the Imperial Assessment Office. "Admiral, the Earth conquest is behind schedule. Resource extraction has not begun. Population relocation is incomplete. Several officers have requested extended leave, claiming stress and fatigue." Kextar's 4 arms tightened into fists. Stress? From conquering a primitive world? These humans should be the easiest species we have ever encountered. "Yes, Admiral. That is what makes the delays so unusual. The humans offer no organized resistance. They have caused no significant casualties. Yet somehow our operations are failing to proceed as planned." The Admiral stared at the report for a long time. In 47 previous conquests, the hardest part was always the initial battle. Once a species surrendered, the rest was simple routine. But Earth was different. The battle had been easy. Everything after that was becoming impossibly complicated. "Send me a full analysis," he ordered. "I want to know what these humans are doing." But the humans weren't doing anything obvious. They were just being human. And for the first time in the Zephyrian Empire's history, that was enough. 3 months after the invasion, Lieutenant Zaxuri made a terrible mistake. He was caught listening to human music. Commander Velnox found him in the supply room wearing human headphones connected to a small device. The young alien's skin had turned bright orange, which meant he was experiencing pleasure. His forearms moved in rhythm to the strange sounds coming from the device. "Lieutenant," Velnox shouted, "what are you doing?" Zaxuri jumped and quickly pulled off the headphones. His skin faded to normal purple, but now showed streaks of yellow fear. "Commander, I was studying human communication patterns. By listening to their noise?" "It is not noise, sir. It is organized sound, patterns and rhythms that create emotional responses. The humans call it music." Velnox stared at his junior officer. "Emotional responses? We do not need emotional responses. We need order and discipline." But Zaxuri was not the only one. Reports came in from across the occupation zones. Alien soldiers were adopting human behaviors. Some had started eating human food instead of their standard rations. Others were learning human languages beyond what was necessary for basic commands. A few had even been seen playing human games with local children. Captain Mordek, who commanded the Philadelphia sector, sent a disturbing report to his superiors. "The humans in this area show no fear of our forces. They treat our soldiers like neighbors. Yesterday I observed a human female giving one of our guards a warm drink, because the weather was cold. The guard accepted it and thanked her." Admiral Kextar read these reports with growing alarm. The Zephyrian Empire was built on strict discipline and clear separation between conqueror and conquered. This mixing of cultures had never happened before. Meanwhile, humans were learning things about their occupiers that surprised them. Pete Williams owned a small auto repair shop in Detroit. When alien vehicles started breaking down regularly, they brought them to his garage. Pete quickly learned that the alien soldiers were not the cold, emotionless beings they pretended to be. "You miss your family?" Pete asked Sergeant Kovacs as he fixed the alien's transport vehicle. The sergeant's skin shifted to a pale blue color. "How did you know?" "You keep looking at this picture," Pete said, pointing to a small device the alien carried. "Same way. I look at pictures of my kids when I'm worried about them." Kovacs showed Pete the image. It displayed 3 small aliens playing in what looked like a garden. "My offspring. I have not seen them in many rotations." "Rotations?" "Your years." 5 years. Pete whistled low. "That's a long time to be away from home. No wonder you guys seem so tired." Word spread quickly through the human community. The alien soldiers were not volunteers. They were conscripts drafted into military service and sent to fight on distant worlds. Many had been away from their families for years. Some had never even seen their home planets. Amy Carter was a nurse at the local hospital. She started a informal support group for alien soldiers who came in for medical treatment. She served them coffee and listened to their stories. She learned that many of them were from planets that had been conquered by the Zephyrian Empire years ago. "So you're fighting for the people who conquered your world?" Amy asked Lieutenant Hextan during one of their conversations. "We had no choice," the alien replied. "Serve in the military or be sent to the work camps, at least in the military. We can send some pay back to our families." Amy felt a chill run down her spine. "Your families are still on your conquered homeworld?" "Yes. They are, how do you say, hostages. We fight well because we know what happens to our families if we do not." This revelation changed everything. The humans realized they were not facing a united enemy army. They were dealing with other victims of the Zephyrian Empire. Maria Santos owned a small restaurant in San Antonio. She had always believed that food could bring people together. When she saw alien soldiers walking past her restaurant, looking tired and homesick, she made a decision that would change her life. She started leaving plates of food outside her restaurant with a simple sign, "Free meal for anyone who needs it." The first alien soldier who took the food was suspicious. He scanned it for poison and checked it for hidden devices. When he found nothing dangerous, he ate it slowly. The next day he came back with 2 other soldiers. Within a week, Maria had a regular group of alien customers. "Why do you feed us?" asked Major Veltok, who had become a regular visitor. "We are your conquerors." Maria smiled as she served him a plate of enchiladas. "You look hungry. I feed hungry people. That's what I do." The major's skin turned a warm gold color. Maria had learned this meant gratitude. "On my world we have a saying, 'The hand that feeds you cannot be your enemy.'" "We have a similar saying here," Maria replied. "The way to a man's heart is through his stomach." Dan Kelly was a former police officer who had lost his job when the aliens took over local government. Instead of sitting at home feeling sorry for himself, he organized neighborhood watch groups. These groups were supposed to help maintain order in the residential areas, but Dan's groups did something unexpected. They started including alien guards in their patrols. At first, it was just practical. The aliens had better equipment and training. But soon, the humans and aliens were working together as real partners. "You know this area better than we do," admitted Corporal Nexval as he walked through the neighborhood with Dan. "The crime reports have dropped since we started these joint patrols." "That's because the criminals know we're working together," Dan explained. "They can't play us against each other anymore." The joint patrols revealed something important. The aliens were not trying to hurt the local population. They were just trying to maintain order while they figured out what to do with Earth. Many of them were as confused about their mission as the humans were. Dr. Helen Price continued her work at the hospital, but now she was also documenting the strange changes happening in both communities. She noticed that humans who worked closely with aliens were becoming more organized and efficient. They were learning alien methods of problem solving and communication. At the same time, Aliens who spent time with humans were becoming more creative and emotional. They laughed at human jokes even when they didn't fully understand them. They showed concern for human welfare that went beyond their military duties. "It's like we're rubbing off on each other," Helen wrote in her private journal. "The aliens are becoming more human and we're becoming more like them. But neither side is losing what makes them special." The most dramatic change happened in the command structure. Officers who had been strictly professional started making decisions based on what was best for both humans and aliens in their sectors. They began solving problems through cooperation instead of force. Commander Velnox found himself in daily meetings with human community leaders. Instead of giving orders, he was asking for advice. "The humans in Sector 7 are complaining about the noise from our night patrols," he told former City Councilman Robert Fisher. "How do we solve this?" "Easy," Robert replied. "Change the patrol routes to avoid the residential areas between 10 p.m. and 6 a.m. Or better yet, let our neighborhood watch groups handle the night patrols. They know the area better anyway." "You would do that? Help us patrol your own neighborhoods?" "Why not? We all want the same thing. Safe, quiet neighborhoods where people can sleep at night." 3 months into the occupation, Admiral Kextar received a report that made his blood run cold. The human contamination was spreading beyond Earth. Ships returning to other worlds were carrying alien soldiers infected with human ideas. Several colony worlds were reporting unusual behavior from their garrison troops. On Zephyros Prime, the Empire's capital world, soldiers were asking questions they had never asked before. They wanted to know why they were fighting. They wanted to visit their families. Some were even requesting transfers to Earth, claiming they could be more effective there. The rigid structure of the Zephyrian Empire was starting to crack, and it was all because of a species that had surrendered without a real fight. The humans had found a weapon more powerful than any military technology. They had weaponized friendship, compassion, and the simple act of treating their enemies like people, and the aliens had no defense against it. 6 months after the invasion, Commander Velnox stared at a stack of paperwork that reached his chest. His forearms were not enough to handle all the documents that humans kept submitting to his office. His purple skin had turned a dark gray color, which meant he was extremely frustrated. "Lieutenant Zaxuri," he called. "How many permit requests did we receive today?" The younger alien officer checked his datapad. 2,473, sir. That is more than yesterday. What do they want permits for?" "Everything, sir. Permits to repair their houses. Permits to plant gardens. Permits to hold birthday parties. Permits to walk their pets. Permits to breathe air on Tuesdays." Velnox looked at the last item on the list. "Permits to breathe air?" "Yes, sir. A human named Tony Rodriguez submitted it this morning. He says that according to Imperial Law 4847 subsection 12, all biological functions on occupied worlds require proper documentation. Tony Rodriguez was a civil engineer who had lost his job when the aliens took over the city planning department. Instead of giving up, he had spent months studying Zephyrian laws and regulations. He discovered that the aliens had incredibly detailed rules for everything, rules that they followed without question. The problem was, the rules were written for other alien species on other worlds. When applied to humans on Earth, they created an impossible mess. "If they want to follow their own rules," Tony told his neighbor Betty Clark, "then we'll make sure they follow every single one." Betty was an accountant who understood how paperwork could be used as a weapon. Together, they created the most thorough bureaucratic attack in human history. Every day, they submitted hundreds of permit requests, license applications, and formal complaints. All of them were technically legal under Zephyrian law. All of them required official responses. And all of them were completely ridiculous when applied to normal human life. Tony filed a request to reclassify his backyard as a separate political entity. Betty submitted a formal complaint that the alien streetlights violated noise pollution standards because they hummed at night. Their neighbors joined in, filing requests for environmental impact studies on everything from lawn mowing to dog walking. The alien bureaucracy, which had efficiently managed dozens of conquered worlds, ground to a halt. Commander Velnok spent his days reading reports about a human who wanted to register his pet goldfish as a diplomatic ambassador. Another human had requested a full geological survey before she could plant tomatoes in her garden. Someone had filed a formal objection to the alien flag, claiming it violated local zoning laws about acceptable colors. "Sir," Lieutenant Zaxuri said, holding up another document. "This human wants to know if our invasion ships have proper parking permits. She says they are blocking a fire lane." The document was 37 pages long and included detailed maps, photographs, and citations from 17 different Zephyrian legal codes. It was completely accurate and totally impossible to ignore. Captain Mordek, who commanded the eastern sector, was having similar problems. A group of humans led by former librarian Nancy Stone had discovered that Zephyrian law required public hearings before any major changes could be made to occupied territories. "You want to build a new military base?" Nancy asked sweetly during one of these hearings. "Well, first we need to discuss the environmental impact. Then we need to consider the effect on local wildlife. Oh, and we should probably talk about traffic patterns and noise levels." The hearings were supposed to last 1 hour. Nancy and her team made them last 8 hours. They asked detailed questions about everything. They requested expert testimony from scientists, engineers, and historians. They demanded written responses to concerns about soil erosion, air quality, and the rights of local squirrels. The aliens had never encountered anything like this. On other worlds, they simply announced what they were going to do and did it. But their own laws said they had to listen to these hearings and respond to all concerns. "Can we not simply ignore their questions?" Captain Mordek asked Commander Velnox during their weekly meeting. "No," Velnox replied, his skin turning darker. "Imperial Regulation 2156 requires full compliance with occupied world legal procedures. If we ignore their requests, we would be violating our own laws." "But their requests are insane." "Yes, but they are legally insane. There is a difference. The bureaucratic nightmare spread to every aspect of the occupation. Simple projects that should have taken days stretched into months. The aliens found themselves hiring human lawyers to help navigate the paperwork. The humans were happy to help for a fee. Dr. Helen Price watched this development with fascination. She realized that humans were not fighting the aliens with weapons or violence. Instead, they were using the aliens' greatest strength against them, their love of rules and order. "The aliens are incredibly organized," she wrote in her journal. "They have procedures for everything. But humans are incredibly creative. We can find ways to use their procedures that they never imagined." The situation became even more complicated when humans started following alien procedures too well. A group of students led by former teacher Linda Brooks began submitting perfectly formatted reports about everything they did. "According to Form 47B, we must report all recreational activities," Linda explained to the confused alien officer. "Yesterday, my students played hopscotch for 17 minutes. Here is the detailed report, including weather conditions, participant names, and measurements of the hopscotch squares." The aliens received thousands of these reports every day. Reports about humans eating lunch, watching television, talking to their neighbors, and taking naps. All perfectly legal, all completely useless. All requiring official filing and storage. Admiral Kekstar reviewed the quarterly reports from Earth with growing horror. The occupation was supposed to be profitable. Instead, it was costing the Empire more money every month. "We have 47 ships in orbit," he told his staff. "We have 50,000 troops on the ground. We have the most advanced technology in the galaxy, and we are being defeated by paperwork. Perhaps we could simply ignore their requests," suggested his aide. "No," the Admiral said firmly. "The Empire is built on law and order. If we start ignoring our own regulations, the entire system could collapse. Other conquered worlds might start demanding the same treatment. Then what do we do?" The Admiral stared out at the blue planet below. "I do not know. This has never happened before." Meanwhile, the humans were learning something important about their occupiers. The Zephyrian Empire was not held together by force alone. It was held together by an incredibly complex system of laws, regulations, and procedures. The aliens followed these rules absolutely, without question. This rigid obedience was their strength when conquering worlds, but it was also their weakness when dealing with creative, stubborn humans who had nothing but time and imagination. Tony Rodriguez and Betty Clark expanded their operation. They recruited former government workers, retired lawyers, and anyone else who understood how bureaucracy worked. They created the Human Administrative Resistance Movement, or HARM. HARM's motto was simple. If you can't beat them, bury them in paperwork. They filed complaints about everything. They requested studies, surveys, and reports. They demanded public hearings, environmental assessments, and cultural impact analyses. They asked for translations of all documents into every human language, including dead languages like Latin and ancient Greek. The aliens had to respond to everything. Their own laws demanded it. Commander Velnox found himself working 18-hour days just to keep up with the paperwork. His staff had tripled in size, but they were still falling behind. Simple decisions that used to take minutes now required committees, studies, and formal review procedures. "Sir," Lieutenant Zaxuri reported, "the humans have submitted a request to have their planet reclassified as a nature preserve. They claim that the invasion violated 37 different environmental protection laws. How long is the application?" 412 pages, sir, plus supporting documents." Velnox looked at the document and felt something he had never experienced before: complete defeat by an enemy that had never fired a shot. The humans had discovered the aliens' weakness. The Zephyrian Empire was so organized, so rule-bound, so absolutely committed to proper procedure, that it could be paralyzed by its own bureaucracy. And the humans were just getting started. 1 year after the invasion, the problems started showing up on other worlds. Captain Texmore had just returned to Kepler Station after 6 months on Earth. He was supposed to report to his new assignment on the mining world of Drastus 7. But instead of following orders, he did something that shocked his commanding officer. He asked questions. "Why are the miners working 18 hours a day?" Texmore asked Colonel Vexnil. "Why do they not get rest periods? Why are their families kept in separate camps?" Colonel Vexnil stared at his subordinate. "Because those are the rules, Captain. The same rules we have followed for 50 years. But the rules cause suffering. On Earth, I learned that happy workers are more productive than tired workers. The humans proved this. The humans are our enemies." "No," Texmore said quietly. "The humans are our teachers." Colonel Vexnil reported this conversation to his superiors. Similar reports were coming in from across the galaxy. Soldiers who had served on Earth were returning to other worlds with strange new ideas. They questioned orders they had never questioned before. They showed concern for conquered populations they had never cared about. On the industrial world of Vega Prime, Lieutenant Koldar refused to execute a work camp supervisor who had been caught giving extra food to starving prisoners. "Mercy is not weakness," he told the shocked tribunal. "I learned this from the humans. Kindness makes us stronger, not weaker." The infection was spreading faster than anyone had expected. On Earth, the relationship between humans and aliens had evolved into something neither side could have imagined. The occupation had become a partnership. Former enemies now worked together on projects that benefited everyone. Joe Mitchell was a farmer in Iowa who had lost most of his crops to drought the year before the invasion. When alien botanists offered to help him improve his soil, he was suspicious at first, but desperation made him willing to try anything. "Your farming methods are inefficient," explained Dr. Kolthar, the lead alien scientist. "But your plants are incredibly adaptable. If we combine our soil treatment technology with your seed varieties, we could increase crop yields by 300%. Joe was amazed by the results. His fields produced more food than ever before. But more importantly, the alien scientists learned something from him. They discovered that Earth plants could adapt to conditions that would kill crops from other worlds. "We've been thinking about farming all wrong," Dr. Kolthar admitted to Joe one evening as they watched the sunset over the green fields. "We tried to force plants to grow in identical conditions on every world, but your Earth plants taught us that diversity makes crops stronger." Carol White was a computer programmer who had been working with Zephyrian technicians to improve communication systems. The aliens had incredibly advanced technology, but it was rigid and inflexible. Human computers were primitive by comparison, but they were creative and adaptable. Look at this. Carol showed her alien partner, engineer Zexval. Your systems can process data 1,000 times faster than ours. But our systems can handle unexpected problems better. How is this possible? Because human programmers expect things to go wrong. We build our systems to handle chaos. Your systems are perfect, but only under perfect conditions. Together, they created a hybrid system that combined alien processing, power with human adaptability. The result was better than either species could have achieved alone. The collaboration was not limited to technology and farming. Former police officer Dan Kelly had expanded his neighborhood watch program into something much bigger. His integrated human-alien patrols were now being copied in other cities around the world. Crime rates have dropped 70% in areas with mixed patrols, Dan reported to a meeting of human and alien leaders. Turns out that when you have two different species working together, criminals can't predict what you're going to do. But the most significant change was happening in the minds of the alien soldiers themselves. They were starting to think like humans. They were questioning authority, making independent decisions, and caring about people they had never met. Randy Brooks, a former city planner, had been working with alien engineers to rebuild infrastructure damaged during the invasion. What started as a practical necessity had become something deeper. "Why do you help us?" asked Major Keltox as they reviewed plans for a new water treatment plant. "Because it's the right thing to do," Randy replied. "Besides, we all live here, now. If the water system breaks, we all suffer." "We all live here now," the Major repeated slowly. "Yes. I had not thought of it that way before." The alien officer had been on Earth for 8 months. In that time, he had attended human weddings, birthday parties, and funerals. He had helped neighbors move furniture and repair storm damage. He had coached a children's soccer team and learned to cook human food. Earth had become his home, even though he still technically worked for the Zephyrian Empire. Nancy Stone, the former librarian who had been organizing resistance through bureaucracy, realized that the nature of the resistance had changed. They were no longer trying to get rid of the aliens. They were trying to make sure that humans and aliens could live together peacefully. "We're not fighting occupation anymore," she told her weekly planning meeting. "We're negotiating integration." The meeting included both humans and aliens. Former enemies sat around the same table, sharing coffee and arguing about zoning laws, school funding, and garbage collection schedules. It looked like any other local government meeting, except that half the participants had purple skin and 4 arms. Admiral Kextar received reports from 17 different worlds about human contamination among returning troops. Soldiers were refusing orders, asking for family leave, and expressing concern for civilian populations. Some had even defected, requesting asylum on the worlds they were supposed to be occupying. The Emperor himself sent a personal message demanding an explanation. "How has one primitive world caused more damage to our empire than 50 years of open rebellion?" the message read. Kextar did not know how to answer. How could he explain that humans had weaponized friendship? How could he describe an enemy that defeated you by making you care about them? The situation on Earth had become impossible to classify. It was not an occupation anymore, but it was not a liberation either. The humans had not driven out their conquerors. Instead, they had converted them. Dr. Helen Price documented these changes in her research. She had been studying the psychological effects of the invasion since the beginning. Her conclusions were startling. "Humans and Zephyrians are more similar than either species wants to admit," she wrote. "Both species form emotional bonds. Both care about their families. Both want safety and security. The only difference is that humans were never taught to suppress these feelings. The Zephyrian Empire succeeded by training their soldiers to ignore their natural empathy. But humans specialize in awakening empathy in others. We make people care about us even when they don't want to. This is not a war between species. This is a war between two different ways of thinking about life, and the human way of thinking is winning." The final proof came when ships started, requesting permanent assignment to Earth. Alien officers who were supposed to rotate back to other assignments asked to stay. They claimed they were more effective on Earth, but everyone knew the real reason. They had found something on Earth that they could not find anywhere else in the galaxy. They had found a place where they could be themselves instead of just soldiers. Commander Velnox was one of them. He submitted a formal request to Admiral Kekstar asking for permanent assignment to Earth. Why? The Admiral asked during their video conference. Velnox looked tired but peaceful. His skin had changed from the dark gray of stress to a warm golden color that meant contentment. Because this is where I belong now, sir. Earth is not just an assignment anymore. It is home. The Admiral stared at his most trusted officer and realized that the Zephyrian Empire had lost Earth long ago. They just had not known it yet. 2 years after the invasion, Emperor Zarthul faced the greatest crisis in Zephyrian history. His empire was falling apart from the inside. 12 colony worlds had declared independence. The soldiers stationed there had refused orders to stop the rebellions. Instead, they had joined them. On Vega Prime, former Lieutenant Koldar was now leading a democratic government that included representatives from 6 different species. On Kepler Station, Captain Texmore had established workers' councils that gave miners equal say in their working conditions. The infection that started on Earth had spread across the galaxy like wildfire, and Emperor Zarthul knew exactly who to blame. Recall all forces from Earth immediately, he commanded Admiral Kekstar. That planet is a disease. We must cut it out before it destroys everything we have built. Admiral Kekstar received the Emperor's order while standing in his command center orbiting Earth. Through the observation windows, he could see the blue planet below. It looked peaceful and beautiful, nothing like the nightmare the Emperor described. Prepare all ships for departure, he announced to his fleet. The Emperor has ordered our immediate withdrawal from Earth. But when the recall order reached the ground forces, something unexpected happened. The soldiers refused to leave. Commander Velnox stood in the town square of New Haven, Connecticut, surrounded by both human and alien residents. The small town had become a model of human-alien cooperation. Human families had opened their homes to alien soldiers. Alien engineers had helped rebuild the town's infrastructure. Children played games that mixed human and Zephyrian traditions. I cannot abandon these people, Velnox told Admiral Kekstar over the communication link. They are not our subjects anymore. They are our friends, our family. Commander, you are disobeying a direct order from the Emperor himself. Yes, sir. I am. Similar reports came in from across the planet. 60% of the Zephyrian ground forces requested to remain on Earth as permanent residents. They had no intention of returning to the rigid military life of the Empire. Steve Barnes, a former military officer who now helped train integrated peacekeeping forces, stood beside Velnox in the town square. He had become something like a brother to the alien commander over the past 2 years. You know what this means, Steve said quietly. Your Emperor will consider you traitors. There's no going back. There was no going back the moment we learned to call this place home, Velnox replied. Admiral Kekstar faced an impossible choice. He could try to force his soldiers to return, but that would mean fighting both humans and aliens who had once been under his command. He could acknowledge that the mission had failed in ways no one had ever imagined. Lisa Adams, an environmental engineer, had been working with alien scientists to solve Earth's climate problems. Together, they had developed new technologies that could clean the oceans and reduce atmospheric pollution. The work was too important to abandon. What happens to our projects if you leave? Lisa asked Dr. Kolthar, her alien research partner. They continue, the scientist replied. I am staying. This work is more important than empire politics. Across the planet, similar decisions were being made. Alien doctors stayed to continue, working in human hospitals. Alien teachers remained in schools where they taught both human and alien children. Alien engineers kept working on infrastructure projects that would benefit everyone. Robert Fisher, the former mayor who had become one of Earth's primary negotiators, called for an emergency meeting of the Earth-Zephyrian Cooperative Council. The council was a unique governmental body that included elected representatives from both human and alien communities. We need to make this official, Robert told the packed auditorium. Those who want to stay should be able to stay. Those who want to leave should be free to go. But we should do this as equals, not as conquerors and conquered. Ellen Davis, a community organizer who had become Earth's unofficial ambassador to the alien communities, stood to address the crowd. 2 years ago, we thought this was about invasion and resistance, but it was really about two lonely species finding each other. The crowd included humans and aliens sitting together, their children playing in the aisles. It was impossible to tell where one community ended and the other began. Admiral Kekstar made his decision. He announced that any Zephyrian personnel who wished to remain on Earth could do so as civilian residents. They would give up their military ranks and become citizens of Earth. In return, Earth would accept them as permanent members of the human community. 23,000 alien soldiers chose to stay. They became farmers, teachers, doctors, engineers, and shop owners. They married humans, adopted human children, and raised families that belonged to both species. Commander Velnox was among them. He married Susan Wright, a human anthropologist, who had been studying Zephyrian culture. Their wedding was the first official human-alien marriage in history. The ceremony included traditions from both species and was attended by hundreds of friends from both communities. Do you take this human to be your mate, in cooperation and harmony, for as long as your stars shine bright? Asked the officiant, using the traditional Zephyrian wedding vow. I do, Velnox replied, his skin glowing bright gold with happiness. Do you take this alien to be your husband in love and partnership, for better or worse, in sickness and health? The officiant asked Susan, using the human wedding vow. I do, Susan replied, tears of joy streaming down her face. The crowd erupted in cheers and applause. Human and alien friends threw rice and small glowing crystals into the air, creating a shower of light and celebration. Emperor Zarthol's empire continued to crumble. More worlds declared independence, inspired by Earth's example. The rigid military structure that had held the empire together for centuries could not survive contact with human ideas about freedom, cooperation, and individual choice. The emperor himself was eventually overthrown by his own people, who demanded the same rights and freedoms they had heard about from returning soldiers. The Zephyrian Empire became the Zephyrian Federation, a loose alliance of worlds that chose to work together instead of being forced to obey. Admiral Kekstar became the Federation's first ambassador to Earth. His job was to help other worlds learn from Earth's example of peaceful cooperation between different species. Earth became known throughout the galaxy as the place where impossible things happened. A world where enemies became friends, where different species worked together as equals, and where the greatest military victory in history was won without firing a single shot. Dr. Helen Price published her final research paper 5 years after the invasion. It was titled The Human Weapon: How Friendship Conquered the Galaxy. Humans did not defeat the Zephyrian Empire through superior technology or military strategy, she wrote. They defeated it through superior humanity. They showed their enemies that there was a better way to live. The invasion of Earth was supposed to be the Empire's greatest victory. Instead, it became humanity's greatest gift to the galaxy. We taught the universe that conquest is not necessary when cooperation is possible. In the end, the aliens did not conquer Earth. Earth conquered the aliens, and in doing so, Earth conquered the galaxy itself. The children of New Haven, both human and alien, grew up playing together in streets where two species had learned to call each other family. They spoke both languages, celebrated both cultures, and dreamed of futures that neither species could have imagined alone. And sometimes, when visitors asked how a primitive world had defeated the greatest empire in the galaxy, the children would simply smile and say, "We made friends. It really was that simple and that powerful."